Welcome back to my channel. I bring to you a sad and shocking story. Nshimiye is accused of lying to conceal his participation in one of the greatest human tragedies of all time, HSI New England Special Agent in Charge Michael J. Kroll said on Thursday. The charging documents make specific allegations about the murder and rape of ethnic Tutsis committed during his time as a medical student in Rwanda. The government alleges his testimony in the defense of a convicted genocidaire was a calculated attempt to conceal the horrific crimes committed during the genocide, further distancing himself from his participation in these horrific events, and avoiding consequences of his actions. The charge of perjury and charge of falsifying, concealing and covering up a material fact by trick, scheme or device can each bring a sentence of up to 5 years in prison, 3 years of supervised release and a fine of up to $250,000. The charge of obstruction of justice can bring a sentence of up to 10 years in prison, 3 of supervised release and a fine of up to $250,000. In Ohio, meanwhile, those who've known Nshimiye for nearly 30 years are struggling to reconcile the allegations with the man who's mentored local students, helped neighbors and been a steadfast presence at a famed employer for decades. Goodyear is deeply troubled to learn of the recent charges brought against one of our associates and is fully cooperating with authorities, the company told The Independent on Friday in a statement. During that time, Nshimiye was an active member of the Mouvement Révolutionnaire National pour le Développement, the ruling party of Hutus inciting the genocide, as well as its youth militia known as the Interahamwe. The court documents allege he was participating in rallies, wearing insignia clothing and even undergoing weapons training in a forest adjacent to the university campus. The student leader of the MRND in Butare, Jean-Leonard Tiganya, was a regular associate, and Nshimiye testified for him decades later in Boston, documents state. But Nshimiye's political involvement deepened and darkened far beyond rallies and insignias. According to Langel's sworn testimony and documents, Nshimiye actively hunted out and marked for execution Tutsis, many of whom had taken refuge at the university hospital. He picked out Tutsis from roadblocks, often armed with a wooden club spiked with nails and a machete as well as a hatchet and grenades, according to documents. The court documents included drawings by 2 people of the torture instrument spike that Nshimiye reportedly used. Both persons who participated in the genocide as perpetrators and survivors of the genocide recently identified Nshimiye as among the most vicious university students who were members of the Interahamwe during the genocide, Lungili writes. For instance, one fellow perpetrator recounted Nshimiye's use of a machete and spiked club to murder 14-year-old Tutsi boy Ashore while after Nshimiye and others had killed his mother. Nshimiye, according to documents, has gone to great lengths for decades to disguise a past that reads in court documents like a horror movie. An ethnic Hutu, which constituted an 85% majority in Rwanda in the early 1990s, Nshimiye enrolled as a medical student around 1991. He studied at the University of Rwanda in Butare, the intellectual and multicultural epicenter of the country at the time and also home of the university-affiliated hospital. He was still a student at the time the genocide began in 1994, according to documents. Now 52-year-old Nshimiye, also known as Eric Tabaro Nshimiyimana, has been charged in a criminal complaint with falsifying, concealing and covering up a material fact by trick, scheme or device, obstruction of justice, and perjury. He was arrested Thursday in Ohio and will appear in federal court in Boston at a later date. In addition to his alleged atrocities in Rwanda, charges also pertain to Nshimiye's false testimony in the 2019 trial of a former classmate and now convicted Rwandan genocide perpetrator. Neighbours in Lake Township, the neatly manicured suburb where Nshimiye has lived with his wife and children for years in a 3-bed, 2.5-bath house, were in shock this week. They told the Canton Repository the family was known for serving African food, with neighborhood children playing soccer in their yard. That is not the person I know, one woman who's been friends with Nshimiye for 12 years told the outlet. The person we know is a family man. He's not a violent person. Our children have spent the night at his house. That's not the person I know. Investigators, however, had already compiled an avalanche of evidence indicating otherwise, and federal prosecutors charged that Nshimiye is instead a genocide perpetrator who's been living a double life for decades. They believe he actively tracked down and pointed out Tutsis, identifying them for death, in addition to brutally murdering victims himself. In one horrifying instance, they allege he murdered a 14-year-old child using a machete and spiked club directly after killing the boy's mother. Lungili began posing a series of questions on March 11 to Nshimiye, now a suburban father of 4 known for mowing neighbors' lawns and general congeniality. The federal agent asked how Nshimiye had come to the United States and what his political affiliation had been prior to the Rwandan genocide, during which the ethnic minority Tutsis were systematically hunted down and killed by Hutu extremists. Lungili asked, ultimately, if Nshimiye had been involved in raping or killing anyone during the genocide, which left 800,000 dead. Nshimiye first responded by shaking his head, laughing nervously, and asking for a drink of water. Lungili later wrote in court documents filed 10 days later. When I persisted by asking again, he falsely denied any involvement in raping or killing anyone during the genocide. Akron was in the middle of an unseasonable warm spell earlier this month when Homeland Security investigator Matthew Lungili arrived at the corporate headquarters of Goodyear Tire and Rubber to meet with the company's principal engineer. Eric Nshimiye had worked at Goodyear in Ohio for 23 years. He joined the same year he graduated from University of Dayton with a degree in electrical engineering. Just 5 years earlier he'd come to the U.S. as a refugee from war-torn Rwanda. Please subscribe, like, share, and follow for more content. If you would like to support my channel, please send it to Cash App $Director327. Thank you for your gift, it is greatly appreciated. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching the video and subscribe to the channel.